On 48th anniversary of Chipko movement, let us today focus on a tree which is sacred, used in religious ceremonies, rituals as sacred incense. Tree is known as Camphor tree. In Hindi it is called as Kapoor Briksh. In Urdu and Persian language, it is called as Kafur. In Telugu language, it is called as Chandrumu. In Malayalam, it is called as Himanshu. In Kannada, it is called as Chandra Dhaval. In Dogri language, we are familiar with this Kapoor when we use it in the Yagya Havan and other rituals. The Dogra rulers also introduced this tree. Especially we could find the old trees growing in Poonch House, where was the Music and Fine Arts Institute also some time back. Camphor tree is basically related to dalchini, cinnamomum, zalanicum or cinnamomum, verum, or our familiar tejpatta, Cinnamomum tamala. The tree which is known as camphor tree is identified botanically as Cinnamomum camphora. This is native to China, Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia. Also cultivated in Indian parks and gardens, especially in Dehradun, ICFRE campus. We see is huge tall trees under cultivation. Even in Saharanpur, 50 years old trees are aged trees, bark or wood chips. They are distilled, boiled, and after distillation, steam distillation, we get camphor. Sometimes even leaves are also steam distilled to get the camphor. Camphor trees are unique among Cinnamomum species in having the strong odor reminiscent of menthol when we crush its foliage. As it is the member of Cinnamomum genus. Cinnamomum genus is usually characterized by 3 nerves rising from the base. So likewise, even in Cinnamomum camphora, we have tri-nerved leaves. They grow alternately but appear pseudo-whorled, as if they are growing in whorls because of clustering. Leaves are up to 4-5 centimeters, egg-shaped, ovate, with a fine tip, and are characterized by having swellings in the side vein axils, which are called domatia. Margin of the leaves are entire, and the young foliage, when we see the new growth in spring, they are colored red, as we find even the leaves of dalchini, Cinnamomum, verum, or even in Cinnamomum sulphuratum. We have many species under Cinnamomum and many are endemic to India. One of the unique tree which have the camphor-like smell in its inner bark was discovered about 6-7 years back in October 2014 from Kollam and Thiruvananthapuram districts of Kerala by the scientists of Kerala Forest Research Institute as the native habitat of this unique newly discovered Cinnamomum was Agasthyamalaya Hills. Species was named as Cinnamomum agasthyamalyanum. This is unique. It resembles to the species Cinnamomum dubium, but is distinguished with camphor-like smell in the inner bark, whereas Cinnamomum dubium has mango-scented bark. Moreover, inflorescence is glabrous in Cinnamomum agasthyamalyanum, and it is pubescent in case of Cinnamomum dubium. This South Indian Western Ghats species is also having camphor-like chemical composition in the inner bark, but this has not been commercially exploited for camphor. Commercially exploited Cinnamomum camphora we see planted in Jammu gardens, and this particular tree is evergreen and it stands introduced in locations like Punch House, Udhampur Botanical Garden Government Degree College, and in other city spaces. Camphor is a white crystalline powder which is burnt during religious ceremonies as incense. This particular tree stands planted even at Daloti Shiva temple in Kathua, where locals were confused with sandalwood tree, which is Santalum album, white chandan. So on visit to Daloti Shiv temple, I came across the Cinnamomum camphora trees, which were mistaken for Santalum album trees. This particular tree, camphor oil, is recommended for the treatment of chest congestion, for better functioning of respiratory tract. This is useful for skin acne, skin blemishes. It is used as cosmetic. It is useful even in arthritis. It is reported to be useful against hair loss, hair fall. Even this is useful for heart troubles and for better functioning of the blood circulatory system. This particular tree powder, called as kapoor, is also insect repellent, and mostly the kapoor balls are kept in woolens to prevent the insect damage. Also reported to be flea repellent because of insecticidal properties. Another toxic nature. The consumption of kapoor is only for the external application and as incense. One may inhale, or in smaller doses it is also used in some Ayurvedic formulations, but the patients suffering from asthma or the breastfeeding mothers, they are prohibited to use kapoor. This plant, Cinnamomum camphora, is highly aromatic. If we crush its leaves, we get a feel of menthol. It also has the linalool content. Even the aromatic tannins are present, and this particular tree is used as a religious ornamental tree in Indian gardens. But when we come to our own Indian native plants, other species resembling this Cinnamomum camphora is seen in northeastern forests, Nepal and Bhutan, which is called as false camphor tree or Nepal camphor tree, which is Cinnamomum glanduliferum, earlier called as Cinnamomum under Cinnamomum it is named as glanduliferum, or also earlier named as camphora glandulifera. There is another unique tree, Southeast Asian tree, which is from the sal family, Dipterocarpaceae, Dryobalanops aromatica. This very tall tree in the rainforests of Borneo and Southeast Asia, Indonesia, this tree also exudes the resinous substance which is boiled to get the Bhimseni Kapoor, which is also valuable and used in various formulations. On the day of anniversary of Chipko movement, Chipko Andolan, when Gaura Devi, along with other women folk in Uttarakhand, Rani village, protested the felling of trees. The birth of hugging the trees, popularly named as Chipko movement, was started this day in 1973, and later similar movement in South India, Karnataka, under the name Epico movement, was also initiated by the environmentalists. But basically it was the year 1730 when Amrito Devi at village Khejadli near Jodhpur had protested the felling of prosopis trees, and 363 people sacrificed their lives to save the trees. And in modern environmental conservation consciousness, we had the Chipko movement of Rani village and Lata village. Gaura Devi basically belonged to the Lata village, where the women folk protested the felling of large trees, oak and ash. As the trees sustain ecosystem stability, they sustain the perennial flow in the water springs, they purify the air, they lead to the stability and better productivity in the food crops. Trees and plants are important for human existence. So on this day, when we are celebrating Chipko movement's 48th anniversary, let us focus on lesser known trees which have religious significance, cultural significance. At the same time, they are useful in building up immunity during the COVID crisis we are grappling with. So camphor tree, Cinnamomum camphora, is one tree which we need to plant in the coming Banmotsava time, and we need to know from where to get the seedlings, saplings of Cinnamomum camphora, Kapoor Briksh, and the tree can resist drought. So in Jammu Kandi belt, this will be fully adapted and it can survive the drought conditions also, and comes up very well even in the subtropical climate of Jammu. So this particular tree, which is aromatic, which is ornamental, which is useful during the COVID crisis, it can take care of our surroundings and also attracts the bird life for its fruits, which are basically drupes, black colored fruits. They are dispersed, and the tree is also stands introduced in Florida, USA, Australia, South Africa. However, in Queensland, Australia and South Africa, it stands labeled as invasive. So once established, when it starts fruit production, its seeds are devoured, eaten by the wildlife, especially birds, and they are scattered far and wide. And older trees also have the capacity to suckering, and through suckers also the plants can be multiplied. So we can take the saplings and seedlings either from Udhampur GDC Botanical Garden or from Punch House Talaptalo Bodhi in Jammu, or from Dhaloti Shiv Temple in Kathua for further propagation and multiplication, at least around the temples and sacred spaces, and in floriculture parks and gardens for greenery and for its health support qualities.